Our headlines for today: WHO Chief Tedros Adhanom issues yet another red alert on Tigray as the world looks away, and the Heritage of Society of Tigray has expressed extreme outrage over the heritage crimes that have been committed in the Tigray region. And members of the Tigrayan diaspora in Washington have demanded the World Bank not to fund the Ethiopian government's ongoing war of this genocide. As we move on to the main stories for today, WHO Chief Tedros Adhanom issues another red alert on Tigray as the world looks away and the Biden administration condemns but takes no serious action. The World Health Organization Director General Dr. Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus sounded the alarm once again on Monday, asserting that the situation was dire in Ethiopia's Tigray region and people are dying at an extreme rate. Dr. Ghebreyesus said that since the signing of the humanitarian truce, now over 3 weeks ago, only 69 trucks with humanitarian aid, or 4% of what is actually needed, have been allowed into the region by the Ethiopian and Eritrean governments, who are accused of enforcing a humanitarian blockade into the region. The WHO chief said Eritrea has invaded Tigray in November of 2020, and with Ethiopian forces sealed off 7 million people from the entire world. The Heritage of Society of Tigray expresses outrage over the heritage crimes that have been committed in the Tigray region. In related news, scholars disclosed that Ethiopian and Eritrean forces and their Amhara allies have been engaged in systematic destruction and looting of heritages in Tigray. Timnit Bayru has more on these details.
The Heritage Society of Tigray expresses outrage about heritage crimes being committed in Tigray. In related news, scholars disclosed that Ethiopian and Eritrean forces and their Amhara allies have been engaged in systematic destruction and looting of heritages in Tigray. The Heritage Society of Tigray has condemned all human rights abuses and heritage crimes committed in Tigray. The Heritage Society of Tigray, in a statement it issued on Saturday, expressed outrage about Tigrayan heritage and cultural values being threatened by an active campaign of destruction and ethical and cultural cleansing. It called on the international community and responsible bodies to plan an urgent intervention to protect, salvage, and restore Tigray's cultural heritage. In related news, scholars from various international universities disclosed that Ethiopian and Eritrean forces and their Amhara allies have been engaged in systematic destruction and looting of heritages in Tigray. The scholars made the remarks in a panel discussion organized by Howard University under the title, "A Crisis in Tigray, a Critical Dialogue."
29 monasteries shelled, destroyed, and some of the civilians killed and heritage looted. This is an example of looting and burning of manuscripts in eastern Tigray, which is called Fredashum. 61 civilians were massacred during the Christmas day, and this is another church and the mosque. So maybe I can just click. These are also some of the shelled and destroyed monasteries. Many of the manuscripts from here were looted. And these are also historical museums and historical palaces.
We do not know what has been looted from the extensive treasury of the Church of the Old Cathedral in Aksum, although the town was a target of the Eritrean troops from early on. Shire, 84 kilometers to the west of Aksum, has long been at the heart of the conflict, and not for the first time. Its people were massacred by the Italians in the 1930s, who also destroyed the nearby monastic church of Debre Abai, where the Eritreans carried out a massacre of theology students early in the current campaign. When I visited the monastery in January 2020, what had survived the Italians remained intact, but reports now say that it has been looted. The same goes for the neighboring monastery of Marawe Krestos, whose ancient manuscripts are of inestimable value, but are said to have been carried away. Large swathes of the northern Tigrayan border with Eritrea are reported to have been repeatedly ransacked by Eritrean troops. That was now nearly a year ago, and no one has been able to get there since to survey the damage, not even the UNHCR and its Ethiopian counterpart. 30 kilometers to the east of Aksum is Adwa, the site of the famous battle in which Emperor Menelik II defeated an invading Italian army in 1896. A few kilometers further east is the monastery of Abba Garima, custodian of the Garima Gospels since the 6th century. These Gospels are a World Heritage item, and one can only hope that they remain untouched.
These churches and also the mosques to some degree are found in on very prominent sites, usually separate from the settlements, especially in the more traditional settings. So if you want to hit such a site, you have to focus on it. You would not shell some area and by chance you would hit such a site. That's not what happened. We have even film clips where you see consequent shelling of a specific ancient, even late Aksumite church, and this shelling doesn't happen by chance.
The panelists said some of these crimes committed include appropriation of heritage through ethnic cleansing, taking heritage as a hostage to get information from local residents on the government of Tigrayan fighters, direct shelling of cultural sites, killing of representatives of religions, burning, looting, and vandalizing of manuscripts and museum, as well as other markers of Tigrayan identity. Other panelists indicated that the attack on cultural heritage is continuing in areas of Tigray occupied by Eritrean and Amhara forces. The blockade of services, specifically telecommunication, pose major obstacle to heritage efforts. They added local professionals and institutions working on heritage sector need support.
Thank you, Timney, and welcome back. You're still tuned into our daily English news. As we move on to our next update for today, members of the Tigrayan diaspora in Washington State, D.C., staged demonstrations demanding the World Bank not to fund the Ethiopian government's current ongoing war of genocide. Members of the Tigrayan diaspora and their sympathizers today staged a demonstration in front of the World Bank headquarters in Washington, D.C. No to war, quote unquote, is one of the placards of the demonstrators read in an apparent reference to the World Bank's recent decision to provide $300 million in grant to the Ethiopian government. The demonstrators handed over their request to a representative of the World Bank, and this is what they had to say.
What we're trying to say in this case, no action is better than this action by the World Bank. And we don't want to take up too much of your time, but thank you so much for your time listening to us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm happy to receive your letter.
Thank you so much.
I appreciate the way the whole people comes out and I'm happy to convey this. Thank you very much.
Thank
This is a peaceful protest against our war, genocide war, the Tigray of Ethiopia. Especially this morning in Washington, D.C., the World Bank headquarters, we are here to demand the World Bank not funding the Ethiopian government. The World Bank group has decided to give $300 million of grant money to the Ethiopian government. We are here to kindly ask the World Bank, this is not the right time.
The geopolitical analyst has expressed his dismay to the Ethiopia's election to the World Food Program Executive Board. The permanent mission of Ethiopia to the UN announced Addis Abeba's election to the Executive Board of WFP's supreme governing body late on Friday evening. Geopolitical analyst Sajid Nadim recalled that the Ethiopian government expelled 7 top UN officials back in October of last year, accusing the UN staff of being biased and politically motivated. Nadim expressed his dismay at the fact that now Ethiopia, which is overseeing the siege starvation of Tigray's region, is elected to the World Food Program's Executive Board. Interestingly enough, WFP has no access to Western Tigray, he noted on his official Twitter account, and the executive body comprises 36 UN member states or the UN FAO. The board is tasked to provide intergovernmental support, policy direction, supervision of the activities of the Food Assistance Branch, as well as the United Nations. As you just saw above, the TMH has received reports of Ethiopians willing to fight alongside Russia against Ukraine and have been seen queuing up outside the Russian embassy in Addis Ababa, the capital of Ethiopia. Images of young Ethiopians outside the Russian embassy in Addis Ababa queuing up to enlist themselves to fight against Ukraine have recently been making the rounds on social media. Tigrai media sources said that about 2,000 Ethiopians have so far enlisted in this week alone. The Russian embassy, although said in Addis Ababa, they have denied these reports and admitted that the Ethiopians were going to the embassy to express solidarity with Russia and not to enlist for the war on Ukraine currently. Pope Francis has warned about the consequences of wars in general. On Palm Sunday, Pope Francis affirmed that every war begins with its consequences that affect all of humanity, from the mourning and the drama of the refugees to the economic and food crises whose signs are already being seen. The Pope also called for peace and reconciliation across hotspots of the world, including that Africa continent as whole, in particular Ethiopia and the Sahel region, and the Democratic Republic of Congo. The pontiff urged that these responsible for nations to listen to the people's cry for peace alone. Sudan on Sunday reaffirmed its ownership of the disputed Fashka district on the border with Ethiopia. Fashka is a Sudanese land, acting Foreign Minister Ali Al-Sadiq told visiting UN Secretary General, Special Envoy for the Horn of Africa, Hanna Tata, according to a statement by Sudanese Foreign Ministry, and negotiations and dialogue are the best means to settle the dispute, as the minister said. The border area between Sudan and Ethiopia has been witnessing rising tensions and skirmishes between the two sides since September of 2020, and in December of 2020, the Sudanese army said it deployed strong reinforcements to the border area with Ethiopia and retook what it terms as the seized land. Our final update for today, sources have told TMH that Ethiopia is seeking to write off all of its external debts. An IMF source, who wanted to remain anonymous, said Ethiopia is soliciting IMF support to facilitate the debt write-off. Finance analysts said the request alone is indicative of the fact that Ethiopia's repayment and debt servicing capacity has hit rock bottom. Ethiopia's request for debt write-off is for all kinds of external debt from the East and the West, a pointer to its current nosediving economy. That concludes our news for today. Thank you for all of you who've been tuned with me live. We'll have more for you tomorrow. Bye-bye.